From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Well, we're on the road and in Cornhusker country this weekend for U.S. Farm Report from the University of Nebraska. Strike averted, how labor negotiations that seem to be going off the rails got back on track late this week. What USDA's groundbreaking announcement about climate-smart ag practices could mean for your farm. USDA making a cut to soybean yield this week. The research here is working to discover what enzymes cause soybeans to produce a valuable oil.
Working with the biomass crops, they don't traditionally make vegetable oils.
And how that could set the stage for demand for farmers. And in John's world,
bugs and clouds.
The 2022 U.S. Farm Report College Roadshow from the University of Nebraska is brought to you exclusively by Beck's. From farmers' first pass in the field to the final one at harvest, it's a game plan rooted in faith and belief. Beck's Hybrids is with you every turn because both on and off the field, we're all farmers at heart. See why at beckshybrids.com.
Well, there's some renewed energy here on campus, and we'll tell you why coming up on this show. But first, let's get to the news. There's a lot to cover this week because after weeks of negotiations, a railroad strike was averted just in time this weekend. The White House announcing early Thursday morning a tentative labor agreement was reached. President Biden saying in a statement the tentative deal, quote, will keep our critical rail system working and avoid disruption of our economy, end quote. He said the rail workers will get better pay, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around their health care costs. He also called the agreement a victory for railway companies. The National Grain and Feed Association commended both sides for reaching a preliminary agreement in advance of Friday's deadline. Rail moves 25% of all U.S. grain. The deal announced this week extends the cooling off period until union members can ratify it. Around 60,000 union rail workers were poised to go on strike starting Friday, which could have brought the transport of nearly 30% of the nation's freight to a grinding halt. Also this week, markets reacting after USDA made big cuts to production numbers for both corn and soybeans in its latest report. The changes coming in the latest supply and demand report from USDA. For corn, USDA is now predicting 172.5 bushels to the acre for yield. That's a drop of almost 3 bushels. That means production is estimated at just under 14 billion bushels, down 415 million from last month. But the biggest shock was from the soybean numbers. USDA now calling for 50.5 bushels to the acre for a soybean yield. That's down 1.4 bushels from August. Production now forecast to be 4.4 billion bushels, down 152 million. Well, a big announcement from USDA. It's investing billions of dollars into climate-smart agriculture. Here's a breakdown of how the $2.8 billion is being spent. It will involve 70 different projects, including fruit, vegetables, and specialty crops, beef and livestock, corn and soybeans, and on down the line. Now, the entities getting the money include farmer co-ops, conservation, energy, and environmental groups, along with universities, small businesses, and large corporations. The money will go to fund everything from flood control to building carbon markets.
Funds provided by USDA under these projects will serve 3 basic purposes. They'll support the technical assistance and financial assistance necessary to accelerate the implementation of climate-smart agricultural practices on our farms, fields, and forests. They'll provide resources for the innovative pilots and cost-effective methods that will quantify, monitor, verify, and report the greenhouse gas benefits from projects. And they'll help to develop and expand the markets for these climate-smart commodities.
The money coming from the Commodity Credit Corporation funds. Well, investigators in North Dakota released new details about a murder-suicide that unfolded in a farmer's wheat field. The town or county sheriff's office says there was a dispute between 2 brothers prior to the murder-suicide, which happened on a farm just northeast of Leeds, North Dakota. They say autopsy results and evidence at the scene suggest that 59-year-old Robert Bracken killed his brother, his own son, and a third man who was the farmer before shooting himself on August 29th. Killed were Bracken's 64-year-old brother, Richard Bracken, Robert's 34-year-old son, Justin Bracken, and 56-year-old farmer Douglas Dumage. The Brackens were working the harvest for Dumage in his field at the time. Well, inflation continues to weigh on consumers and the markets. The latest consumer price index shows while inflation has slowed, prices are still rising for many key items. The monthly CPI rose 8.3% from a year earlier as lower gas prices were offset by higher costs for rent and food. But analysts were expecting a decrease. The numbers will likely push the Federal Reserve to hike its benchmark rate another 75 basis points.
It's going to be a function of do they decide they want to continue to raise the rate hikes again, another 0.5 or 0.75%. And my guess is that's probably the chatter that they're going to put out.
Food inflation was up 0.8%, with the biggest price increase led by eggs, rising 2.9% just in August. They're up nearly 40% over the past year. All right, that's it for the news. Well, temps hit 90 degrees here in Nebraska, a state that has seen drought and heat all summer. We'll have a check of weather with meteorologist Matt Yurosavik next.